I'm interested.
Yeah. Probably come to me about 2 o'clock this morning.
Tell me the next day.
Are we good?
Okay.
I call the Norton City Council regular council meeting for Monday, October 28th, 2019 to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Here.
Mr. McClone?
Here.
Mr. Carratt?
Here.
Mr. Towsley?
Here.
Ms. Whipke? Mr. Pelot?
Here.
Mr. Kernan?
Here. Communications from the public. Please step forward, give your name and address. You have 5 minutes, beginning with Brian Smith.
Do I got to say my name since you already said it? Or?
Yes, please.
Brian Smith, you want my address?
Yes, please.
3794 Easton Road.
Thank you.
We are wondering if anyone else has had the same experience we had regarding a sign in our yard. Saturday, while picking up a pizza at Fat Boys, my wife was confronted by the mayor regarding a sign in our yard. He said we would be receiving a citation. He wanted the sign removed from our yard immediately. The sign was for another component. Well, today we just received the violation letter and ordinance to comply. We want to know, has anybody else gotten these? And I feel this is political. And I didn't know the mayor's the police for zoning violations, especially when somebody's at a pizza shop picking up a pizza. So is this a common thing for the mayor to confront people? I see he's not here tonight. Does anybody know why he's absent? Well, you know, you guys are the council people, supposed to represent the people. And if you're judging people, standing by his side, it blackballs you too. You know, I'd like some answers. Too bad he's not here. But you know, I see a lot of other signs out there. Can anybody tell me how many of them have been cited? It's gotten awful quiet in here.
Is this a political sign, or what sign are we referring to?
This is a political election sign. I've had signs in my yard. I'm the guy that had the big blue sign in his yard about keep the dust down. I'm sure you remember that. I never got a citation for that. And that sign was 12 feet tall by 16 feet. And I never got a citation.
How big is this sign?
8 feet by 4 feet. And granted, I did have some lights blinking on it during Halloween. As soon as trick-or-treat was over, I turned the caution yellow lights off. It's not blinking anymore. I mean, if we got another thing, since I only got 5 minutes, if he's out policing, he better start policing the right things. You know, you guys got this construction in Norton, and evidently your police and fire department don't have time or whatever, but the mayor's got time to nail somebody for a sign. But you got these steel plates out there on the roadways, and they're not to ODOT specifications. They're not pinned down. They're not blacktopped around. They're flat. They're supposed to even be anti-slip. Motorcycles wreck real easy on a curve on one of the metal plates. I just find it kind of ironic that he's policing something political, but what about all this other stuff? If he's got time to do that, why ain't he out doing that? I mean, these steel plates on these roads with no slippage on them at all. Falls here. Leaves are wet, steel's slippery as it is. You get leaves on it, it's a nightmare. I think you guys better start thinking about your priorities and stay out of the political. Guess that's all I got to say since the mayor ain't here to back himself up.
The only thing, I don't, to begin with, I don't even know what sign you're referring to make any comments on it, what transpired or not to be able to make any comments on your statements. But wouldn't that be ODOT's issue as far as what's on the roads where they're doing construction, and that doesn't fall to us?
So any contractor who has a contract is in control of the construction site. He is responsible for any accidents, anything that happens in the construction site. So ultimately, the contractor would be liable for that. And if the gentleman is referring to Cleveland Maslin, ODOT is the project manager, and they would be responsible for the oversight.
That's what I thought.
Well,
Thank you.
this was more concerned at the Loyal Oak area that went on way past the time frame on the sign. But if we're paying these contractors good money, and somebody better follow up on it. I mean, it's bad enough we got boys dying in other countries at war. We don't need them coming home trying to ride their bikes and get killed in their own hometown.
Mr. Smith, can I ask, I've got your address here, and you're down the street from my ward, but my question is, where was the sign located?
In my front yard.
That's what I need to find. Thank you. See me afterwards if you wish, and I'd like to take a look at it. If it's still there?
Oh, it's still there. It's gonna be
Fine.
there. I'm appealing.
That's
I can
fine.
appeal. I'm appealing.
Just-
You want to poke a? He
I'd like
poked.
to take a look
He
at it.
poked the wrong bear.
Thank you. Judith Lee.
Judith Lee, 3227 Creekside Drive, Norton, Ohio. I just have a question, and I wanted to get some comments. There was a gentleman that was here, the last city council, that spoke about a drug rehabilitation facility that he sought to bring here. He said that he had spoke about it previously with the Mayor Zita and I think a couple of other council people. Nothing much was said, but I am very interested in finding out about this because this is the avenue that I advocate for, is treatment for those who are addicted to drugs, and try to see what we can do to clean up our communities with this problem. I wanted to find out from council, is this something that you're looking to bring here? If so, are we looking to see how also this it would benefit the city financially, not only with the treatment program, but what else are we advocating for, or could we advocate for to bring this? Is this an interest to you?
To
And
assess
if-
that, Joe?
Sure, go ahead.
Being in my ward, they approached me first and detailed as much as they could. After that fact, I began to have a clearer picture that they had been in violation of some ordinances. The way that they did things was not proper. They're making some effort to correct that. It's not a financial thing for the city to go after. However, it is also an effort to clean up an area that's been blighted, and I think it's a good idea, good effort. We have just as many addicts in our area as any other city. 44203 is one of the worst in the county. So there is going to be a Kiwanis program. I believe I have them scheduled as a speaker. That's going to be Thursday night, 2 weeks from now. It'll be the first Thursday in November. Tentatively, they're scheduled to speak. So if you want to come join us at that meeting at the community center, 7 p.m., and anyone else is welcome to join.
Okay, I really appreciate it.
And
Thank you
I'll also let you know, Ms. Lee, that we are having a hearing on this matter November 11th, I think it is. It's set for hearing in front of council so that we can get some information and go from there. So
Is the community welcome to that as well?
It's a regular council meeting.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Committee of the Whole, Appropriation of Property, Ordinance Number 120, 2019 is mine. If Mr. Fowler or Mr. Markey just wants to fill everyone in.
Eastern Road water line is under construction. We've been in negotiations with Dollar General's property owner. It's called ExchangeRate.net. They're based in California. Negotiations started in late May. We thought we were close in August. The gentleman with whom we were having discussions was terminated, and subsequently we had to restart. And we are still not closer today as we were in June. So we need to file the appropriation in order to keep the project moving.
My understanding is that Dollar General actually leases that property from another company. It is not Dollar General that is the problem. It's the leasing, the
Correct.
company that they're leasing from. We need property across the front of their property to continue that water line.
So because the sewer line, because that is on the border of Wayne County, we have to have so many feet from the sewer line. Because of a disagreement between Barberton and Wayne County going back several years, we're not able to run the water line in Wayne County. And subsequently, we need this easement to proceed with the project.
And my guess would be is that really what we need to do here is file this so that we can just kind of jiggle the system to get things moving along,
We're in
correct?
continuing discussions with them. We had discussions today with them. I think ultimately our hope is to resolve it without filing litigation. The authorizing the petition is just the next step to allow us, if those negotiations fail, to take the appropriate steps.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I've got one for Mr. Markey.
Mr. Towsley?
If litigation was the way that had to go, do you have any idea an approximate timeline that would take?
No, it's really, not quick. If there's any experience with the probate courts, which is why we're asking for pretty quick passage of this ordinance. It's really up to the court how they decide to rule, but we need to get filed in any event, because if we don't file, then we're even delaying it further.
I think my understanding of this is that once it's filed and the property owner, who is the leasing company, receives notice, then their attorneys are going to be in contact, and hopefully we can get something resolved fairly quickly just by kind of bringing the parties together
That's
by
right.
doing this.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Did we wanted to look at waiving tonight and getting this thing rolling? Is that correct? All right. I will move then to add ordinance number 120, 2019 to tonight's agenda, waiving second and third readings. And I believe there's emergency language in it.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to add 120, 2019 to tonight's agenda. Is there any further discussion? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Kernan,
Yes.
Mr. Pelot,
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor,
Yes.
Mr. McClone,
Yes.
Mr. Carrot,
Yes.
Mr. Towsley,
Yes.
Ms. Whipke.
Yes.
Thank you. Letter B, real estate purchase and sale agreement, Pettit. That also is in my committee. Again, Mr. Fowler, can I have you give us a
So,
quick explanation?
Pettit Auto Wash is a company that's currently existing in the city of Norton. They have been looking to expand. They had an agreement to go to Wadsworth. That deal fell through with some environmental concerns. The acreage may not be exactly correct. We're having it surveyed now. It may be closer to almost 12 acres. They'll be buying it for $20,000 an acre. This will be parcel number 2 from the Eastern Fairland industrial area.
And we are looking at just doing a first reading
yeah,
tonight.
first reading. We
Okay.
can go a couple reads. I just, they've been anxious to, they contacted us in May, June, and we wanted to see how the other land sales went before we would commit, and we're now ready to move forward.
We have a little time due to the survey and some of the timing issues that we can.
Okay, so we still need some time anyway. Okay. Any further questions or comments?
I do have
Mr.
one.
Towsley?
Maybe for clarification for myself and the public. If I'm understanding this right, this would border the Clinton aluminum property and no residents, no current residents right now. Is that correct?
The northern half of their property will border a residential property,
Okay.
but where they have planned to put their building will be towards the front of the property. And there'll be no infrastructure extension. So if you look at it, it's rectangular shaped, north and south.
Okay. My concern is, are we going through the same measures to protect residents if it's necessary?
Yes. And I've been assured that the far northern end of the property is not buildable because of the elevation, but we will confirm that
It's
and
the
make
same
sure.
property owner that borders the Clinton parcel, correct? It's
Yes.
all one property owner.
It's all one
So
property.
The same property owner that was
Yeah.
impacted by Clinton is impacted by the next parcel over.
Yes.
So it's all along, fronting off of Fairland along the northern portion of the property.
Correct.
Any further discussion?
Just to clarify,
Mr.
I
Grant?
understand that we don't have a lot of urgency to do this right away, but I'm just wondering, the statement that's in page 5, section 12, time is the essence. I see this in both 121 and 122, and I just wonder if that's a standard thing.
It's a real estate thing.
So it's not really for us to have any urgency.
No, it's
then.
really it's something that real estate purchase agreements say because that helps courts enforce agreements if there's ever a fight, and so you always see it in a real estate purchase agreement. I'm not sure why, just reasons, historical reasons.
Thank you.
Anything further? Hearing nothing, then I will move to add ordinance number 121, 2019 to tonight's agenda for a first reading only.
I'll second.
It's a motion and a second to add 121, 2019. Any further discussion? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Kernan,
Yes.
Mr. Pelot,
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor,
Yes.
Ms. McClone,
Yes.
Mr. Carratt,
Yes.
Mr. Towsley,
Yes.
Ms. Whipke.
Yes.
Thank you. Letter C, real estate purchase and sale agreement, Created Outdoors LLC. Again, Mr. Fowler, if you could.
So as you may recall, we openly bid the Mungo property, which is a property that is wetland filled and really of no use to us. We found a buyer that his intent is to keep it as green space. And the bid, it was the highest bidder for that property, and the bid amount is $100,000.
And the use for that, as I understand, there's a ministry associated with that. If you could just go into that a little bit.
So the gentleman has a ministry in which he teaches children how to bow hunt and how to essentially, for lack of a better term, cure the meat and other things you do when you hunt. I'm apologizing, I'm not a hunter. But to take the steps to prepare. He's been, he has a TV show that he films, so help education and seems to be a worthwhile cause. Plus, it keeps it as green space, which I think we can all agree having some green space in our city is important as well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Ms. Whipke?
We actually have own more than just that 34 acres out there, don't we? Wasn't it quite a bit more? That's all
So
of it?
that'll be all of the Mungo property except there is a small 0.18. I don't know the exact size. That's an estimated size to the west of Clark Mill Road. And the reason we cannot sell that parcel, it's not even a parcel, it's just split in half by the road, but we can't sell that portion of the property because that would landlock the property owner across the street. So we will not sell that portion. We will maintain that as city property. It's like 0.18 acres, but he'll get the remainder from Clark Mill Road to Barber.
I thought that Mungo property actually ran almost all the way to Barber Road. I don't know why I was.
It goes all the way to Barber.
At Barber to Clark Mill.
Yep.
Okay, and it's only 34 acres?
Any other comments or questions?
Timeline.
Mr. Pilat?
Is there a specific timeline on this?
Whenever, I mean, it can follow the same course as Pettit.
Okay.
But I just wanted to bring up one thing. With the sale of these two properties, the total amount with Clinton will be $795,145. So you can see we're about $4,000 short of our goal, which I told you was at the end of the year, was $800,000.
Which is to pay off.
To pay off the money we borrowed to purchase the land. We will have one more agreement coming forward that will result in the relinquishing of that debt in its entirety.
So we will not be carrying any debt forward
Correct.
on that. Thank you. Anything else? All right. I will move then to add ordinance number 122, 2019 to tonight's agenda for a first reading only.
I'll second.
There's a motion and second to add ordinance number 122, 2019 to tonight's agenda. Any further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Mr. Pilat?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Is there anything else to come before committee of the whole? Consideration of minutes. Minutes of regular council meeting of October 15th, 2019. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those? They will be accepted as submitted. Reports from officers, boards, and commissions. Mr. Fowler.
Just a couple quick updates. You may have received a nixle on Johnson Road. They got held up on a previous job, so they'll be starting in 2 weeks on the 11th, much to my dismay. The Cleveland-Massillon Road project, they shifted into paving. You may notice that from the railroad tracks to the center, town center, they are now using fresh pavement going north. So there'll be some adjustments there. There'll be some traffic pattern changes that'll be upcoming. They have to be on that side of the street by the end of the month. And then lastly, the Cleveland-Massillon Road North project, they are wrapping up this week with some seeding and grading. Should be able to open the north end here within the next few days.
So we're almost done.
We're almost there.
All right. And Johnson Road, just to be clear, I know I've seen some questions about this, and I just want to make it clear again. Johnson Road from Hametown to Medina Line is one project, and from Hametown to would be Worcester Road is a separate project, correct?
Correct. So we applied for AMATS funding. You authorized AMATS funding. You authorized the application for AMATS funding for Johnson Road from Hametown to Worcester. What we're rebuilding is that section, and I'll ask Mr. Towesley, he knows better than I, that was redone 2 or 3, no, it was before that, 4 or 5 years ago, that has been riddled with some drainage issues. We redid some drainage. The motor pave application is probably not the best use on that street due to the heavy traffic. So this is a full depth repair and reclamation with asphalt to make it more sturdy for the heavy traffic that travels Johnson.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Messner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 2 items for council tonight. Last Thursday, I sent to all of the council members a third quarter report on Gardner Energy, which is our You'll recall the city signed a lease agreement to do energy conservation in the city, LED lights throughout the whole city, gas-fired down in the service department. The projection last year was to save $61,587. That was met. Through the third quarter of this year, as you saw in the report, they've recorded savings of $42,173, and they feel very confident that we will hit our $61,000 projection for the second year. The question I have for council, and we can get further into this when we get into budget talks, but to think about, would it be your desire to continue the study for a third year? We've done it the first 2 years. The first year costing $10,000. This year, 2019, was $7,500. They will repeat the study again for another $7,500, and council will need to make that determination if they want to have them continue the study for a third year. The other item I have is you've all received your 2020 budget books. I believe we'll be starting budget hearings here in the next couple weeks. I think we'll put out a schedule as to how that will flow. However, please review your books. If you have questions, please do not hesitate to email me. Even if you wish to ask that same question on council floor is fine, but that will at least give me a chance to review and update you personally and even expand if we need to. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Markey?
Just as Mr. Fowler mentioned about the Clinton aluminum parcel, just wanted to let council know that sale did close today. So the city should be receiving proceeds, and the deed will be recorded tomorrow by the title company. So just wanted to make sure everyone aware of that.
Thank you.
Before we go on.
Yes, Ms. Whippy?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Messner, when going back to the Gardiner energy thing, when we made this up for that was around $500,000 or so.
Correct.
The idea was the savings that we received every year from this would actually cover the cost of our payments.
That's correct.
And that's what we are doing, which was the whole idea and why we're enthusiastic about this, that in the end, this is going to cost us nothing. Yet we will continue with savings.
It's a budget neutral item. You're correct.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding that as well. If it's the end of the third quarter and the savings so far is only
42,000.
42? Mm-hmm. Where do they figure on making another 19 to get to that 61 if we've only saved 42?
Part of that, I think, is gas. We'll start to see an increase with colder weather, the gas coming on in that. They felt pretty confident, and we'll see. I mean, we'll have that report in December. Before council, I believe, leaves for the holiday. I'll be reporting again to council, so we'll see.
Okay.
But they felt, when I met with them last Wednesday, they felt pretty confident that they would hit that. And I've noticed kind of an uptick, too, in the electric bills. I don't know whether it's because our outside street lights are coming on earlier due to dusk in that. We're seeing some of our bills go up due to some of that, so.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Messner,
Yes.
excuse me, you might want to also mention to him about the fact that we changed from electric to gas at the service department. So there's going to be a bigger savings in the service department area because the electric, is a lot more expensive. And so when we move into the season that we're using the gas, you should see, hopefully, a lot more savings because of the fact it's gas and not electric.
Thank you.
Mr. Kernan.
Anything else, Mr. Towsley?
Yeah, I might as well before we move on. I just kind of wanted to point out, should have said this a few minutes ago, but a few months ago when I voted against the purchasing of the land on Eastern Road, a big part of that was I was concerned about putting other people's money, the people of the city's money ahead on debt. And I just want to give the administration the kudos they deserve that we won't be doing that. So I'm very happy to know I was wrong in that circumstance.
Thank you, Mr. Tousley. Anything else? All right, we have no public hearings. Moving on to introduction of new legislation, ordinance number 120, 2019. I offer ordinance number 120, 2019 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance appropriating property interest described as utility easement, Eastern Road water line, now owned by Exchange Right, Net Lease Portfolio 17, LLC, for the purpose of constructing, installing, and maintaining a water line, making a finding of necessity for the appropriation, and authorizing the city solicitor and/or his designee to file a petition for appropriation in the Court of Common Pleas, Probate Division, Summit County, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
At this time, I move to waive the second and third readings of ordinance number 120, 2019.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to waive the second and third readings of ordinance number 120, 2019. Is there any discussion regarding waiver only? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tousley?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
I move to adopt ordinance number 120, 2019.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 120, 2019. Is there any further discussion? Would the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tousley?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance number 121, 2019. I offer ordinance number 121, 2019 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the administrative officer to execute and deliver a real estate purchase and sale agreement and declaring an emergency.
That's for first reading only. Ordinance number 122, 2019. I offer ordinance number 122, 2019 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the administrative officer to execute and deliver a real estate purchase and sale agreement and declaring an emergency.
And that's for first reading only. Ordinance number 113, 2019. Ms. Whipke?
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance 113, 2019 for its second reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance declaring the improvements to certain real property within the city to be a public purpose, describing the public improvements to be made to directly benefit such parcels, exempting such improvements from ad valorem real property taxation, requiring the owner of the improvements to make service payments in lieu of ad valorem real property taxes, and establishing a municipal improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of the service payments in lieu of ad valorem property taxes, all pursuant to sections 5709.40, 5709.42, and 5709.43 of the revised code, and declaring an emergency.
Second reading only.
Thank you. Ordinance number 114, 2019. Ms. Whipke?
I offer ordinance 114, 2019 for its second reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance declaring the improvements to certain real property within the city to be a public purpose, describing the public improvements to be made to be directly benefit such parcels, exempting such improvements from ad valorem real property taxation, requiring the owner of the improvements to make service payments in lieu of ad valorem real property taxes, and establishing a municipal improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of the service payments in lieu of ad valorem property taxes, all pursuant to sections 5709.40, 5709.42, and 5709.43 of the revised code, and declaring an emergency.
Second reading only.
Thank you. Ordinance number 115, 2019. Ms. Whipke?
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance 115, 2019 and for its second reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of real property from the Summit County Land Reutilization Corporation and declaring an emergency.
Before I go on, is there any reason to waive this? We're okay if we go ahead for the third reading? Okay, second reading only. Thank you.
Thank you. Ordinance number 119, 2019. Ms. Whipke?
And thank you, Mr. President. Before I get started, I'd just like to mention that 119 has been amended to include $12,000 for engineering reviews that came up after we had already had the first reading on this last week. So does have that 12,000 added to it. So at this time, I offer amended ordinance 119, 2019 for its second reading.
So before we go on, do we need to make a motion to amend the ordinance?
We can do that. I mean, it doesn't hurt anything.
Okay, I think we should probably
Go
do
ahead.
that first. Yeah, just make a motion to amend it.
Okay, at this time, I make a motion to amend ordinance 119, 2019, reflecting the 12,000 additional dollars.
That's in the Exhibit A, and so that's an additional
Yes, it's shown.
appropriation of $12,000 for engineering expenses.
I'll second.
Right, there's a motion and a second to amend the ordinance. Is there any discussion regarding the amendment? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Okay, now, I guess my question, do we go forward with the second reading amended, or?
No, I think the
Yes.
reading. Oh, okay, that's fine. Proceed.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we would move for a second reading of amended ordinance number 120.
Like I was doing.
Yes, correct.
119.
I'm sorry,
I offer
119.
Excuse me. I offer amended ordinance 119, 2019 for its second reading. Ask clerk to read, please.
An ordinance to amend the appropriations for the current expenses of the City of Norton for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2019, authorizing transfers from the general fund for calendar year 2019 and declaring an emergency.
Okay, as we need to get this done before the month is over with, at this time, I motion to waive the third reading.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to waive the third reading of the ordinance. Is there any further discussion regarding waiver? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
This time, I motion to adopt amended ordinance 119, 2019.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 119, 2019. Is there any further discussion? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. Are there any public service announcements?
Just one.
Mr. Fowler?
Just a reminder that we are collecting toys for the Akron Children's Hospital in the lobby for those that were in the hospital over Christmas. That will end on November 8th. So anybody who wishing to make a donation can do so there. Thank you.
Any further public service announcements? Hearing nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.